Lamar Shepard with Youngblood Athletics, here to discuss part 2 in our little mini-series, Reconnecting with Early Stage Developmental Movement Patterns. That's a mouthful. But last week we talked about rolling. Hopefully some of you have given that a shot and discovered just how challenging it is. Arguably that's our first exposure to growth stabilization and how that plays a role in movement. Today we're actually going to talk about crawling. So there is an in-between stage that we're actually going to skip over, which is creeping. Essentially, as babies develop more strength in their upper bodies, in contrast to their lower bodies, they will start moving around essentially on their stomachs, dragging themselves by their upper bodies. Not that that stage is unimportant, but not quite as interesting as some of the other stages that we're going to be exploring. So again, today we're going to talk about crawling, and I think it's important for 2 reasons. One of which is it's obviously our earliest introduction to some of the things that happen when we're actually upright on 2 feet and we're actually either running or walking. So getting the lower quadrants to speak to the opposite upper quadrants of our body is essentially what crawling facilitates. The second thing at more of a deeper level is getting these muscle slings to work together within our bodies. So our bodies are essentially a system of systems, a beautiful one at that. But these muscle slings store and release energy, and through the muscles, tendons, ligaments, and more importantly the fascia, allow the lower quadrants to speak to the upper quadrants. Okay, so I'm just going to get on the ground, and the first thing we're going to explore is the stability component of crawling. All right, so I'm on all fours, obviously. My hands are directly underneath my shoulders. My knees are directly underneath my hips. And what's amazing is how babies are able to get in these proper positions without any learning. So the stability component of this really exists or comprises this ability to support my weight on opposite limbs, right? And I can discover this by simply lifting each limb up as if I'm flying and just bringing those limbs together, elbow to knee. So this is in and of itself a really good tactic, if you will, or movement to incorporate into your warm-ups, especially early on. I find it's a really good way to get the wiring, the proper wiring going between your brain and your muscles, because it is a bit challenging. But with that stability component in mind, moving on to our crawling example, I'm just going to crawl around on the ground. Again, for babies, after they get it down, it's an opportunity to move by getting one part of the body to speak to the other. Again, a very important precursor to what happens when we're ultimately on 2 feet and we're walking and we're running. Living near Golden Gate Park, I have the fortune to see a lot of runners and various different running styles. Some good, some not so good. But one of the things that you find people struggle with is getting their arms to connect with their legs, which is obviously going to make them more efficient and potentially more faster as they run. I think incorporating some crawling methods or variations in your warm-up will allow you to reconnect with those basic movement patterns, facilitate better communication between those opposing limbs, and ultimately it can help you as you move on to other activities when you're actually upright. All right. So stay tuned next week. Certainly give these a try in the interim, but we'll look forward to the next stage in our series, and we'll see you next week.